Captain Jiho Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Resilience, watching the stars shift as his ship moved through space faster than light. It was 2157, and humanity had finally learned to travel between star systems. This was their first real journey into deep space, far from Earth's protective embrace. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Technician Soman Kwak from her station. Her fingers danced across the control panel as she tried to make sense of the readings. "Multiple ships approaching our position. They're not human." Jiho felt his heart skip a beat. First contact with alien life. Every human had dreamed of this moment, but now that it was here, he felt nervous. "How many ships, Soman?" 7 large vessels, sir. They're bigger than anything we've ever built." Soman's voice was steady, but Jiho could hear the excitement underneath. Dr. Yuna Park looked up from her medical station. As the ship's doctor and scientist who studied alien life, she had waited her whole career for this moment. "Are they showing any hostile behavior?" "No hostile actions detected," reported Security Chief Taehyun Yu. "But they're surrounding us in a formation. We can't move without their permission." Jiho made his decision quickly. "Send a peaceful greeting message on all frequencies. Ambassador Hana, prepare for first contact protocols." Ambassador Hana Lee moved to the communication station. She had trained for years to be humanity's first voice to alien civilizations. Her hands shook slightly as she activated the transmitter. "Unknown vessels, this is Ambassador Hana Lee of the United Earthship Resilience. We come in peace and wish to establish friendly relations." The response came faster than expected. The main screen filled with the image of a being that looked like living crystal. Its body was translucent blue, with geometric patterns flowing beneath its surface. When it spoke, the voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Greetings, small creatures of the warm world. I am Veltar of the Silicoid Republic. We represent the Veltharian Confederation, rulers of this galaxy sector." The being paused, and Jiho could see other alien figures in the background. "We are curious about your species. You travel in such a fragile shell through the dangerous void." Hana exchanged glances with Jiho before responding. "We are humans from the planet Earth. We seek knowledge and friendship among the stars." "Humans." Veltar repeated the word carefully. "How fascinating. Our sensors show that you require very specific conditions to survive. Your ship maintains such a narrow temperature range, and you need this particular mixture of gases to breathe. How do you manage to exist in such delicate circumstances?" Engineering Officer Minho Choi frowned at his console. "Captain, they're scanning our ship very thoroughly. They seem particularly interested in our life support systems." Another alien appeared on the screen. This one looked like a walking tower of ice with frozen methane crystals forming its body. "I am Krextar of the Arctoid Collective. Your species amazes us. You cannot survive in vacuum like the silicoids. You cannot withstand radiation like the photovores. You cannot adapt to extreme cold like my people. How did such fragile beings ever leave their homeworld?" Dr. Yuna stepped forward. "We may seem fragile to you, but we have found ways to protect ourselves and adapt to different environments." A third alien joined the conversation. This one was pure energy contained in a magnetic field, its form shifting and dancing like a living aurora. "I am Fluxara of the Energy Collective. We have studied many species, but never one so limited by physical requirements. Your bodies are soft, your bones break easily, and you die if your temperature changes by just a few degrees. It is remarkable that you survived long enough to develop space travel." Jiho felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "Every species has different strengths and weaknesses. We have learned to use tools and technology to overcome our limitations." "Tools, yes," Veltar said, and Jiho heard something like amusement in the crystal being's voice. "But what happens when your tools fail? What happens when your fragile ship breaks in the cold void? Your species would die in moments." Hana tried to steer the conversation back to diplomacy. "We would like to learn about your confederation and explore possibilities for trade and cooperation." "Cooperation?" The ice alien Krextar made a sound like glaciers cracking. How could such delicate creatures cooperate with civilizations that have survived for millions of years? "You would need constant protection and care." The energy being Fluxara pulsed brighter. "Perhaps we should escort these humans to a safe zone, away from the dangerous regions of our galaxy. There are some quiet systems where they might survive if they are very careful." "That is very kind," Hana said diplomatically, "but we are capable of taking care of ourselves." "Are you?" Veltar's crystal form shifted colors. "Your ship's hull is so thin. Your power systems are so simple. Your entire species seems designed for a single, perfect world. The galaxy is not a safe place for creatures who need such specific conditions to live. Minho whispered to his captain, "Sir, they're treating us like children who wandered into a dangerous neighborhood." Jiho nodded grimly. He could see the pattern emerging. These aliens saw humans as impossibly fragile beings who had somehow stumbled into space travel. They weren't being cruel exactly, but they clearly thought humans were too weak to survive on their own. "We appreciate your concern," Jiho said carefully, "but humanity has overcome many challenges to reach the stars. We are stronger than we appear." "Stronger?" The energy being flickered with what might have been laughter. "Your entire ship would be destroyed by a solar flare that we would barely notice. Your crew would die from radiation levels that we consider mild. Your technology would fail in temperatures that we find comfortable." Dr. Yuna spoke up. "Different species have different definitions of strength. Perhaps what you see as weakness, we see as an opportunity to grow stronger." "An interesting philosophy," Veltar admitted. "But philosophy does not protect against the harsh realities of space." "Very well, humans of Earth. We will escort your vessel to the sanctuary sector. There you will find worlds that are better suited to your delicate nature." "We didn't ask for an escort," Taehyun said quietly, but Jiho silenced him with a look. "We accept your offer of safe passage," Hana said diplomatically. "We look forward to learning more about your confederation." As the alien ships took formation around the human vessel, Jiho gathered his senior officers for a private meeting. "They think we're helpless," Taehyun said bluntly. "They're treating us like pets who need to be protected." "Maybe that's not entirely wrong," Minho said thoughtfully. "Compared to them, we are pretty fragile. They can survive in space without ships. We need all this technology just to stay alive." "Fragile doesn't mean weak," Dr. Yuna said firmly. "Sometimes the things that seem like weaknesses can become strengths in the right circumstances." Jiho looked out at the alien escort fleet surrounding them. "I have a feeling we're going to get a chance to prove that sooner than we think." The journey to the sanctuary sector would take several days. As the human ship traveled under alien protection, none of them realized that they were about to face tests that would change how the entire galaxy saw humanity forever. 2 days into their journey toward the sanctuary sector, everything changed. Technician Soman Kwok was monitoring the ship's sensors when she noticed something wrong with the readings from the star they were passing. "Captain Jiho, we have a problem," she called out from her station. "The star ahead is showing massive instability. Solar flare activity is increasing rapidly." Dr. Yuna Park looked up from her research on alien biology. "How bad is it going to be?" "Bad," Soman said, her voice tight with worry. "The radiation burst will be 10 times stronger than anything our shields were designed to handle." Engineering Officer Minho Choi was already running calculations on his computer. "If we get hit by that much radiation, our electronics will fail and our hull will become radioactive. We'll be dead within hours." Captain Jiho immediately opened communications with the alien escort fleet. "Veltar, we're detecting dangerous solar activity ahead. Our ship cannot survive the radiation levels we're seeing." The crystal alien's response came quickly. "Yes, we are aware of the stellar instability. It is unfortunate, but such events are common in this region of space. We will prepare to evacuate your crew to our ships before the radiation wave reaches us." "Evacuate," Jiho repeated. "Can't we avoid the solar storm?" "The radiation burst will spread across several light years," the ice alien Krekstar explained. "There is no way to avoid it. Your fragile ship will be destroyed, so we must save your people. Please prepare for immediate transport to our vessels." Commander Taehyun Yu moved to his security station. "Captain, something doesn't feel right about this. The timing seems too convenient." Dr. Yuna noticed something odd in the alien communications. "Captain, have you noticed that they seem to know exactly how much radiation our ship can handle? How would they know our limits so precisely?" Minho was studying his engineering reports when he found something disturbing. "Sir, I've been reviewing our system logs. Some of our equipment has been failing in small ways over the past 2 days. Nothing dangerous, but enough to make us look vulnerable." Salman checked her sensor records. "Minho's right. We've had 17 minor malfunctions since we met the aliens. That's far more than normal." Jiho felt anger building in his chest. "Are you saying they've been sabotaging our ship?" "Not sabotaging exactly," Minho said carefully. "More like testing us, seeing how we respond to stress and equipment failures." Before anyone could respond, the alien Fluxara contacted them. "Humans, you must evacuate immediately. Your ship cannot possibly survive what is coming. Even our advanced vessels will struggle with this level of radiation. Thank you for your concern, Jiho said, making a decision that surprised everyone on the bridge. But we're going to try to make it through on our own. What? Veltar's crystal form flickered with shock. That is impossible. Your ship will be destroyed. Your crew will die painful deaths from radiation poisoning. Maybe, Jiho admitted. But we didn't come this far just to give up at the first sign of danger. Dr. Yuna moved to her medical station. Captain, if we're really going to do this, I need to prepare the crew for potential radiation exposure. We'll need to rotate shifts and use emergency medical protocols. Minho was already working on modifications to their shield systems. I can boost our deflector output by 30% if we reroute power from non-essential systems. It still won't be enough, but it might give us a chance. Do it, Jiho ordered. Salmon, plot the fastest course through the radiation field. Find us the path with the lowest exposure time. As the human crew worked frantically to prepare for the impossible, the aliens watched in amazement. They had expected panic, begging for rescue, immediate surrender. Instead, the humans were calmly preparing to face certain death. This is madness, Krextar transmitted. Your species has no chance of survival. Why do you refuse our help? Because if we can't handle a solar storm, how can we ever hope to explore the galaxy? Jiho replied. Sometimes you have to risk everything to prove you belong. The radiation wave hit them 6 hours later. The ship's alarm screamed as energy levels spiked beyond all safe limits. The lights flickered and several systems failed immediately. Hull breach in Section 7, Taehyun reported. Emergency seals are holding, but barely. Primary life support is offline, Minho called out as sparks flew from his console. Switching to backup systems. Dr. Yuna was coordinating medical teams throughout the ship. First radiation sickness cases are coming in. Teams Alpha and Beta, report to Medical Bay immediately. Team Gamma, you're next for shield duty in 4 hours. The worst part lasted 18 hours. During that time, the human crew worked in shifts, exposing themselves to dangerous radiation levels to keep their ship functional. When the shields failed completely, they used the ship's hull itself as protection, knowing that some of them would get sick from the exposure. Minho worked for 12 straight hours in the most radioactive part of the ship, manually repairing critical systems. When he finally collapsed from radiation poisoning, Salmon took over without hesitation. I can handle 6 more hours, she told Dr. Yuna, even though they both knew the radiation would probably kill her. But somehow, impossibly, they held together. When the solar storm finally passed, the human ship was still intact. Damaged, radioactive, and barely functional but alive. The alien fleet surrounded them immediately. Incredible. Veltar's voice was filled with wonder. Your ship should have been destroyed. Your crew should all be dead. 7 crew members in critical condition, Dr. Yuna reported to her captain. 15 more with severe radiation sickness. But we're all alive. How? Fluxara pulsed with confusion. We monitored your ship throughout the storm. Your shields failed completely. Your hull was breached in multiple places. The radiation levels inside your vessel exceeded lethal limits for hours. Jiho smiled grimly. We took turns. When one person got too sick to work, another took their place. We shared the danger so no one had to face it alone. But the radiation should have killed anyone who entered those areas. Krextar insisted. Our species would not survive such exposure. Maybe that's because you never had to learn how, Dr. Yuna said as she treated another sick crew member. We've always lived with the knowledge that we could die at any moment. So we've learned to push beyond what should be possible. The ancient alien Nexavon spoke for the first time. His voice was old and tired. In all our millennia of existence, we have never seen a species willingly face certain death, just to prove they could survive it. Most remarkable. We didn't face certain death, Jiho corrected. We face possible death. There's a difference. As the human crew worked to repair their ship, the aliens watched in growing amazement. These supposedly fragile beings had survived something that would have destroyed most civilizations. They had looked death in the face and refused to blink. Perhaps, Veltar said slowly, we have underestimated what fragile means. The journey to the sanctuary sector would continue, but something had changed. The aliens no longer spoke of protecting the helpless humans. Instead, they began to wonder what other impossible things these strange creatures might be capable of surviving. 3 days after surviving the solar storm, the human ship was still making repairs when their sensors detected something unexpected. Salman Kwak was running diagnostics on the navigation systems when she found a distress signal hidden in the background noise. "Captain Jiho, I'm picking up an emergency transmission," she reported. "It's very weak, but it's definitely a call for help." Dr. Yuna Park looked up from treating the last of the radiation sickness patients. "Where is it coming from?" "That's the problem," Soman said, frowning at her readings. "The signal is coming from inside the Cathara Nebula. That's a dead system where a star collapsed 200 years ago." Engineering Officer Minho Choi was immediately interested. A collapsed star means massive gravitational distortions. Space and time get twisted in ways that can trap ships forever. Captain Jiho opened communications with the alien escort fleet. "Veltar, we're detecting a distress signal from the Cathara system." "Are there people trapped in there?" The crystal alien's response was immediate and sad. "Yes, we are aware of the situation. A civilian transport carrying 3,000 Arctoid refugees was caught in the gravitational collapse. They have been trapped for 6 days. Why haven't you rescued them?" Dr. Yuna asked. The ice alien Krekstar answered this time. "The radiation and gravitational forces around the collapsed star are beyond what any ship can survive. We have accepted that they are lost. It is tragic, but nothing can be done." Pilot Yoonbi Song had been listening quietly from her fighter cockpit, which was docked inside the main ship. Now she spoke up for the first time. "Captain, request permission to review the sensor data on that system." "Granted," Jiho said. He knew Yumbi was one of the best pilots humanity had ever produced, but he wondered what she was thinking. After an hour of study, Yunbi came to the bridge with a grim expression. "Sir, I think there might be a way to get those people out." Ancient Commander Nexvon joined the alien communication. His voice was heavy with age and sadness. "Young pilot, we have run every calculation. The radiation levels around the collapsed star would kill any crew within minutes. The gravitational fields would tear apart any ship before it could reach the civilians. Any ship built by your people," Yunbi said respectfully, "but human fighters are smaller and more maneuverable. I might be able to get in fast enough to attach emergency beacons to their ship. Then your larger vessels could lock onto the beacons and pull them out with tractor beams. The radiation alone would be lethal," Fluxara pointed out. "Even if you could survive the gravitational forces, the energy exposure would kill you before you could complete the mission." Dr. Yuna was already thinking about the medical challenges. "Unbi, the radiation levels they're describing would cause immediate cellular damage. You'd be dead within an hour of exposure." "Maybe," Yunbi said calmly. "But 3,000 people are definitely dead if we do nothing." Minho shook his head. "Even if you could somehow survive the radiation, your fighter's electronics would fail immediately. You'd be flying blind in one of the most dangerous regions of space." "I've trained for manual flight in emergency conditions," Yunbi replied. "Give me a ship that can handle the physical stress and I'll find a way to reach them." Captain Jiho studied his pilot's face. He could see that she had already made up her mind. "Yumbi, this is a suicide mission. You understand that, right?" "Yes, sir. But it's also the only chance those civilians have." Dr. Yuna was working frantically on her medical computer. "Wait, there might be a way to give you more time. If we could lower your body temperature and slow your metabolism, you might survive the radiation exposure longer." Induced hypothermia? Dr. Kyung-Soo An, the ship's trauma surgeon, had joined the conversation. "That's incredibly dangerous. We'd be putting her into a controlled near-death state." "Better than actual death," Yunbi said with a slight smile. Minho was already modifying her fighter. "I can shield the critical systems and install manual backups for everything. You'll be flying a ship that's more like an old Earth fighter plane than a modern spacecraft." The aliens watched in growing amazement as the humans prepared for an impossible rescue mission. "This is madness," Veltar said. "You are planning to send one person to die for the slim chance of saving people she has never met." "That's what people do," Jiho said simply. "We save each other." 4 hours later, Yunbi Song lay on the medical table as Dr. Yuna and Dr. Kyung-Soo prepared her body for the mission. They lowered her body temperature to dangerous levels and injected her with experimental drugs designed to protect her cells from radiation damage. "Your heart rate will slow dramatically," Dr. Yuna explained. "You'll have maybe 2 hours before your body systems start shutting down permanently. That's if the drugs work at all." 2 hours is plenty of time," Yunbi said, though her voice was already slowing as the hypothermia took effect. Minho had worked miracles on her fighter. The small ship was now covered in extra shielding and fitted with manual controls for every system. If the computers fail, you can still fly this thing with mechanical linkages and visual navigation. As Yunbi's fighter launched toward the collapsed star, the aliens followed with their sensors. What they saw defied everything they thought they knew about survival limits. The human pilot flew directly into radiation levels that should have killed her instantly. When her ship's electronics failed, she continued flying using manual controls. When the gravitational forces began tearing at her fighter, she used the chaos to slingshot toward the trapped civilian ship. "Impossible," Krextar whispered. "She should be dead by now." "Her life signs are barely detectable," Nexavon reported. "But she is still functioning." Yunbi reached the civilian transport and managed to attach the emergency beacons to their hull. Then she began the journey back, flying a damaged ship through forces that should have destroyed her. She made it back to the fleet. But her fighter was falling apart and she was clinically dead. Dr. Kyungsoo and Dr. Yuna worked for 14 hours to bring her back to life. They had to restart her heart 3 times and repair damage to organs that the aliens didn't even know could be healed. "How is this possible?" Fluxara asked as they watched the surgery. "She was dead. We recorded no life signs for over an hour." "She was mostly dead," Dr. Kyungsoo said while working. "But humans are very hard to kill completely. We don't give up easily." The rescue operation succeeded. All 3,000 civilians were pulled to safety using the beacons Yunbi had placed. The pilot herself survived, though she would need months of recovery. As Yunbi finally woke up in the medical bay, Nexavon visited her personally. "Young pilot, in all my centuries of existence, I have never seen anyone return from death itself." "I wasn't dead," Yunbi said weakly. "I was just visiting." The ancient alien studied her for a long moment. "Perhaps our definition of death is too limited. You humans seem to treat it as a temporary inconvenience rather than a permanent ending." Dr. Yuna smiled as she checked Yunbi's vital signs. "Death is only permanent if you accept it. We've learned that sometimes you can argue with death and win." The alien fleet continued toward the sanctuary sector, but their escort mission had become something entirely different. They were no longer protecting fragile creatures from the dangers of space. They were witnessing something unprecedented, a species that could literally come back from death when others needed saving. "I am beginning to think," Veltar said quietly to his fellow commanders, "that we may have completely misunderstood what strength means." 1 week later, as pilot Yunbi Song was still recovering from her impossible rescue mission, the fleet encountered something far worse than solar storms or collapsed stars. Technician Soman Kwak was monitoring deep space when her sensors detected an ancient ship drifting in the void. "Captain Jiho, we have a derelict vessel ahead," she reported. "It's old. Really old. The design doesn't match any of the alien ships we've seen." Dr. Yuna Park looked up from Yunbi's medical chart. "How old are we talking about?" "Based on the metal composition and construction methods, I'd estimate at least 10,000 years," Soman said. "Maybe older." The crystal alien Veltar immediately contacted the human ship. "You must not approach that vessel. It is from the time of the Great Plague. Ships from that era are forbidden to all life." "Great Plague?" Captain Jiho asked. "What happened?" Ancient Commander Nexvon's voice carried deep sadness when he answered. "Long ago there was a biological weapon called the Devourer. It consumed entire worlds, converting all organic matter into more of itself. That ship probably carries samples of the weapon." Engineering Officer Minho Choi was studying the derelict ship's structure. "Sir, the ship's containment systems are failing. Whatever is inside might not stay contained much longer." "Then we should destroy it from a safe distance," suggested Commander Taehyun Yu. "No," Fluxara said urgently. "The weapon is too dangerous. If released, it could spread across the galaxy again. We must evacuate this entire sector and establish a quarantine zone." "You're talking about abandoning billions of people," Dr. Yuna said in shock. "Better than losing the entire galaxy," Krextar replied coldly. "The Devourer cannot be stopped once it begins spreading. We learned this truth the hard way." As they debated, disaster struck. A small meteor hit the ancient ship, causing a containment breach. Within minutes, a dark substance began spreading from the vessel, consuming any matter it touched. "The Devourer is free," Nexavon announced with despair. "All ships must retreat immediately. Send word to evacuate the nearest inhabited systems." How fast does it spread? Jiho asked. It doubles in size every hour, Veltar explained. In one day, it will have consumed this entire region of space. In a week, several star systems will be gone. Dr. Jisoo Kang, the ship's specialist in dangerous diseases, had been studying the sensor readings of the spreading organism. Captain, request permission to analyze the weapon's structure. Maybe there's something we can do. Analysis is pointless, Krekstar said. The Devourer is perfect. It adapts to any countermeasure and converts all biological matter into copies of itself. Nothing can stop it. Nothing has stopped it yet, Dr. Jisoo corrected. That doesn't mean nothing can. While the alien ships prepared to retreat, the human crew worked frantically to understand the ancient weapon. Dr. Jisoo discovered that the Devourer was essentially a living virus that consumed organic matter to reproduce itself. It's incredibly efficient, she reported to Captain Jiho. But efficiency can also be a weakness. If we could modify its reproduction process, we might be able to turn it against itself. Minho looked up from his computers. What kind of modification are you thinking about? The weapon converts organic matter into more copies of itself, Dr. Jisoo explained. But what if we could inject it with modified organic matter that would change its programming? Instead of consuming and reproducing, it might start healing and repairing. Dr. Yuna was immediately interested. You're talking about creating a virus that turns the Devourer into a healing agent? Exactly. But someone would have to inject the modified virus directly into the core of the Devourer mass, and that person would be consumed in the process. The bridge fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. It was another suicide mission, but this time the person wouldn't come back. I'll do it, Captain Doan Shin volunteered. He was the commander of their quarantine vessel, designed for handling dangerous biological threats. My ship is already equipped for this kind of mission. Captain Shin, you understand that this is certain death? Jiho asked. Not near death like Yunbi's mission. Actual permanent death. Yes, sir, but if we don't try, billions of people will die anyway. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans prepared another impossible mission. This is madness, Veltar said. You cannot fight the Devourer with sacrifice. It will consume your people and become stronger. Maybe, Dr. Jisoo said as she worked on modifying the virus. But it's never encountered humans before. We might surprise it. Captain Shin's quarantine ship approached the Devourer mass, which had already grown to the size of a small moon. As his ship entered the outer edge of the organism, it began consuming the hull immediately. The ship is being dissolved, Shin reported calmly. Beginning injection of the modified virus now. His life signs are fading, Dr. Yuna said as she monitored from the human ship. The organism is breaking down his body at the cellular level, but something unexpected happened. As Captain Shin died, the modified virus he had injected began spreading through the Devourer mass. Instead of consuming and reproducing, the weapon began healing and repairing damage to the surrounding space. Impossible, Nexvon whispered. The Devourer is changing. It's no longer consuming matter. It's restoring it. Other human volunteers followed Captain Shin into the organism. Each person who died while injecting the modified virus caused more of the Devourer to transform. Within hours, the ancient weapon had become a healing agent that repaired damaged ships and restored dead worlds. How many humans died in this process? Krekstar asked quietly. 47 crew members, Jiho reported. They gave their lives to save billions of people they had never met. But why? Fluxara pulsed with confusion. They knew they would die. They knew they could not come back this time. Why did they choose certain death for strangers? Dr. Yuna was treating the emotional trauma of losing so many friends. Because that's what people do. We save each other even when it costs everything. Your species is unique, Nexvon said after a long pause. Every other civilization would have fled and accepted the loss of several star systems. You chose to fight an unwinnable battle and somehow won. We didn't win because we were stronger, Jiho explained. We won because we were willing to lose everything that mattered to us to save everyone else. The transformed Devourer continued its work, healing damage across the galaxy that had existed for thousands of years. Dead worlds came back to life. Broken ships were restored to perfect condition. The ancient weapon of destruction had become a force of creation. The humans have turned our greatest fear into our greatest hope, Veltar said in wonder. They have defeated death itself by embracing it. As the fleet continued toward the sanctuary sector, The aliens no longer spoke of protecting the fragile humans. Instead, they began to understand that humanity's willingness to die for others was not a weakness. It was the most powerful force in the galaxy. Dr. Jisoo looked at the data from the transformed devourer and smiled sadly. We lost 47 people, but we saved countless billions. I think Captain Shin and the others would say that was a good trade. The aliens had no response to this. In all their millions of years of existence, they had never encountered a species that could transform ultimate destruction into ultimate healing simply by being willing to sacrifice themselves for others. The journey to the sanctuary sector was almost over, but everything had changed. The humans were no longer refugees seeking safety. They had become something the galaxy had never seen before. A people who could defeat the impossible by refusing to accept defeat. 6 months had passed since the humans transformed the Devourer from a weapon of destruction into a force of healing. Captain Jiho Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Resilience, but everything was different now. The ship had been repaired and upgraded with alien technology, and more importantly, the humans were no longer being escorted to a safe zone. Instead, they were leading a joint fleet toward the Veltharian capital world. Admiral Jiho, Technician Sumin Kwak said with a smile. Jiho's promotion had come with humanity's new status in the galaxy. We're receiving a formal transmission from the Veltharian High Council. On the main screen appeared Elder Thazim, the supreme leader of the Veltharian Confederation. The ancient being's form shifted between energy and matter, showing its incredible age and power. Admiral Jiho of Earth, humanity, and the United Earth Fleet, Elder Thazim began formally. On behalf of the 7 species of the Veltharian Confederation, I extend our official request for a permanent alliance between our civilizations. Dr. Yuna Park, now promoted to Chief Medical Advisor for Interspecies Relations, smiled at the irony. 6 months ago, the aliens had wanted to hide humanity in a safe corner of the galaxy. Now they were asking for partnership. We are honored by your request, Elder Thazim, Jiho replied. But I'm curious why you've changed your opinion of humanity. Because we were wrong about everything, the Elder admitted. We thought fragility was weakness. We thought your limitations made you inferior. We failed to understand that your awareness of death is what makes you truly alive. Engineering Officer Minho Choi, now head of the Joint Human-Alien Technology Program, was working with alien scientists on new ship designs. Elder, can you explain what you mean by that? For millions of years, each species in our confederation has focused on avoiding death, Elder Thazim explained. The silicoids built bodies that could survive in vacuum. The Arctoids adapted to worlds where most life would freeze instantly. The photovores became immune to radiation that would kill others. The crystal alien Veltar appeared on screen beside the Elder. We became so focused on survival that we forgot how to truly live. We stopped taking risks. We stopped growing. We stopped helping others if it meant danger to ourselves. But humans are different, added Krextar, the ice alien who had once thought humans were too delicate to survive. You know you can die, and that knowledge makes every moment important to you. Pilot Yunbi Song, fully recovered from her near-death experience, joined the conversation from her new position as head of rescue operations. We don't see death as something to avoid at all costs. We see it as something that gives meaning to life. Exactly, Elder Thazim said with what might have been a smile. When we saw Pilot Yunbi risk death to save strangers, we began to understand. When we watched Captain Shin and his crew sacrifice themselves to transform the Devourer, we realized what we had lost. Ancient Commander Nexvon spoke from his ship. In all my centuries, I had never seen anyone choose to die for people they had never met. Your species does this naturally, without hesitation. It's not natural, Dr. Yuna corrected gently. It's a choice we make. Every human who risks their life for others is choosing to put someone else's survival before their own. That choice is what makes you powerful, Elder Thazim said. You survived a solar storm that should have killed you, because you were willing to share the risk. You rescued our people from certain death because one pilot was willing to die for strangers. You turned our greatest fear into our greatest hope, because your crew chose sacrifice over safety. Admiral Minji Han, the new commander of Earth's expanding fleet, had arrived just in time to hear the conversation. Elder Thazim, what exactly are you proposing for this alliance? We want to learn from you, the Elder said simply. For too long, our civilizations have stagnated because we were afraid to risk anything. We want humans to teach us how to live with the knowledge of death. You want us to teach you how to be mortal? Jiho asked in surprise. Not mortal in body, but mortal in spirit, Veltar explained. We want to learn how to care about something more than our own survival. We want to understand what makes life worth risking. Engineer Jinwoo Park, Minho's younger brother who had recently joined the fleet, was excited about the possibilities. Think about what we could accomplish together. Human creativity and risk-taking combined with alien technology and knowledge. But there's more, Elder Thazim continued. We want to establish joint colonies throughout the galaxy. Places where humans and aliens can live together. Where our species can learn from your example. What kind of example? Dr. Yuna asked. The example of beneficial fragility, the Elder explained. You have shown us that limitations can become strengths. Your need for specific atmospheric conditions led you to develop amazing life support technology. Your physical vulnerability made you innovative and cooperative. Your awareness of death made you brave and selfless. Fluxara, the energy being, pulsed with excitement. Imagine what we could discover if we stopped being afraid of failure. Imagine the problems we could solve if we were willing to risk everything for the right cause. You're talking about a fundamental change in how your civilizations think, Admiral Minji said thoughtfully. Yes, Elder Thazim agreed. For millions of years we have defined strength as the ability to avoid death and weakness. You have shown us that true strength is the willingness to face death for something greater than yourself. Jiho looked around at his crew. The humans who had somehow changed the course of galactic civilization simply by being themselves. We accept your proposal for alliance, Elder Thazim. But we have one condition. Name it. This alliance must be between equals. We won't be your teachers or your students. We'll be partners learning from each other. Agreed, the Elder said immediately, though I suspect humans will always surprise us with what they consider possible. As the joint fleet approached the Veltharian capital, Jiho reflected on their incredible journey. They had started as refugees being escorted to safety, seen as too fragile to survive in the dangerous galaxy. Now they were pioneers of a new way of thinking about life and death. Admiral, Soman said from her station, we're receiving congratulations from colonies across the galaxy. Word of the alliance has spread quickly. Any complaints about humans being too delicate? Minho asked with a grin. Not anymore, Soman laughed. Now they're calling us the species that argued with death and won. Dr. Yuna was reading medical reports from across the galaxy. The transformed devourer has healed over 1,000 worlds so far. Dead planets are coming back to life because our people were willing to die to save them. Engineer Jinwoo was working with alien scientists on new technologies that combined human innovation with alien knowledge. We're designing ships that can survive anything because they're built by people who understand both survival and sacrifice. As the capital world of the Veltharian Confederation came into view, Elder Thazim made one final statement. Today begins a new age for our galaxy. An age where we measure strength not by what we can survive, but by what we're willing to risk for others. An age where being fragile doesn't mean being weak, Veltar added. An age where death is not the end, but the price we pay for making life meaningful, Nexavon concluded. Admiral Jiho smiled as he looked at the thousands of ships from dozens of species all flying together toward a shared future. The aliens called us delicate, he said to his crew. They were right, but they didn't understand that our delicacy is what makes us unbreakable. The human fleet took its place among the greatest civilizations in the galaxy, not because they had overcome their limitations, but because they had learned to transform those limitations into strengths. They had shown the universe that sometimes the most fragile things are also the most powerful, and that the willingness to face death is what makes life truly worth living. Behind them, across hundreds of worlds, the transformed devourer continued its work of healing and restoration, a permanent reminder that even the greatest weapons of destruction can become forces of creation when touched by those who understand that some things are worth dying for.